were your heroes growing up? Who really inspired you to want to make music?
Well, like everybody else, Buddy Holly, Elvis, Eddie Cochran. I was always interested in other guitar players, singer-songwriters that wrote their own songs.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lot of these people in the past, the Everly Brothers, and and Jerry Lee Lewis. These were our influences. As in Birmingham,
sure.
The Beatles were in Liverpool. We were influenced by very similar music, and a lot of American music came across to Germany because of the American Forces Network in
sure.
Germany, the radio. So we grew up listening to that music.
It's always fascinating that you were influenced by the Americans and then we were influenced by the British, and it keeps going back and forth. That's a big cycle.
Well, yeah.
But we appreciate your appreciation of the American music.
That's it,
so
man.
much.
We wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for that.
Well, we're obviously big fans of Ben on the Run, Wings at the Speed of Sound, all the great records that you made with it. Tell us about, I know you knew Paul prior, but tell us about when he gave you the word. He said, I'm moving on, I want to form a band with you.
Well, because he knew me, I think, is why he'd called me. But, I'd already been working on a project called Electric String Band, which is my own personal project. And I did a show at the Seville Theatre, which is owned by Brian Epstein, which is the Jimi Hendrix show. And I know that Paul and John were in the audience at that time. And I think because I was doing something progressive and in a similar vein as to what he wanted to do, that he called me. Him and Linda got together, obviously, and then were looking to put a band together after the Ram album.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he originally was going to use the guys who played on that, which was Denny Sywell and plus these other musicians who didn't want to go ahead and do it. So he called people who he knew, and I was the first one. So
that's great. Well, take us behind the scenes again. Writing an album like Band on the Run. What was the process like? What was the magical moments and memories for you?
Well, I didn't write the bulk of it. So again,
I
contributed on one song as writing, but the playing of was just me and him. We basically put the backing tracks down because the two other guys didn't turn up. So it was an easy process because not the pressure was on, but the necessity to do it was there. We were there in the studio, going there, we got on the plane, we were on our way, and we knew we'd have to come up with something, which is the way you are. And wherever you are, you're influenced by the music around you, which at that time, of course, was African rhythms. And Ginger Baker was a friend of ours, and he also lived in the same town that we recorded that album. Right. So we were very influenced by our environment. And the studio wasn't great, but there again we had Jeff Emerick on from the Beatles engineer, and we had the basics that we needed. So we basically put an album together that, as we used to, very simply. It wasn't hard to do.
Sure. So you guys clicked. It was just a creative process, and yeah. And how about Venus and Mars? Anything about that?
Again, that was another lineup. You use different. When you get a new lineup, you get a different sound. You get a different chemistry, and in actual fact, the drummer Joe English joined us for that album as a stranger. So I mean, again, that was a new process of bringing in someone from the outside. Great drummer, good singer. Gelled pretty easily, and it was the New Orleans influence of the different style of music that came from that area. So each time we did something, I think we didn't have to put too much in. It was all around us. We just kind of soak it in. We soak the atmosphere of the environment.
So it's a very organic process. You didn't really feel the pressures of having to live up to this.
There's no pressure involved. I mean, you really don't. If you go into anything with pressure, you don't come out with anything, and I don't think we ever felt there was pressure on. I mean, the whole thing, I suppose, of the early Wings was the fact that Paul being so famous and the Beatles and everything, I mean, I was famous to a point, but not to that level, is that we didn't want to be pressured by that fame. We wanted to start something that was easier, like starting any band. You know, you don't want pressure when you're starting a band. You just want the freedom to do what you feel like doing, and we always had that attitude. So therefore, you know, we were productive rather than sort of hesitant as to what we should and shouldn't be doing. I don't think you work with the audience in mind at that point. I think you're just working what you can do, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's depending on how the audience reacts to it. Then you find out exactly whether, you know, they're going to accept it or not.
Sure. Now, we, of course, know Paul for the music, but take us behind the scenes. What kind of person is he?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, that's for everybody to have an opinion on. For me, I just knew him, and therefore he was easy enough to work with and socialise with, which it was. It was like a 24-hour job in a sense, that it wasn't like going to work, you know.
You joined the family.
Yeah, it was, well, not so much family. It was just more kind of like being in any band where you just, you know, it's like you do it at your own pace. And working with Paul was very much like that. It was very productive, very kind of loved to be in the studio all the time, which wasn't always my choice. I like to be a bit more, you know, studio work can be very tiring and very, you know, it's all very well, but I don't like to spend too much time in studios. I'm more of an outdoor person, and studios do tend to take over a little bit. You know, it's a kind
you got to live life.
Yeah, exactly. You got to
Yeah.
live your life. But of course, it was very productive, and it wasn't hard work at all. It was fun.
But he's down to earth. He's a very caring person.
Yeah, he's pretty down to earth. He's always been that way. But, you know, fame makes you a certain kind of person too. You can't mix that much with everybody because it's just too much to take on.
Yeah, yeah.
So you tend to just become the artist again that locks yourself away and work. And like anybody else, really, you've got to keep rejuvenating yourself by getting away from the audience and becoming like a little worker bee, you know, like just get down to coming up with a new product in your own time.
Sure. Well, looking back over the years with Wings, what was the album that you were the most proud of?
Well, only because it's the most popular, I think, is Band on the Run. Because it was just the challenge of having to do it, just the three of us, you know. So that really is the one that stands out for me. But then, you know, I'm not a great listener to stuff that I've done before. And when I listen to some of the other albums, you know, I'm pleasantly surprised, because at the time you just do it and then it's out, you know. And then you might listen to it again if you're going to be doing a tour and you've got to relearn some of the songs. But I'm not like a sit down, you know, and listen to what I've done. I just like to move on.
Yeah. And everything that you've experienced, what advice would you give to that young writer, that young band or artist coming up today? What do they need to concentrate on?
Well, the whole thing about, you know, life is to be yourself and not to be too swayed by things that you don't want to do. All right? So the ideal lifestyle is to be in control of what you do and have the freedom to express yourself. So my thing is that you don't have to compare yourself to the best guitarist or the best writer in the world or the best whatever. You have to know that what you're doing is just important as anybody else, and you'll learn during the process of doing it and get better and better and better at doing it. But you have to have that initial, hey, I believe in myself. This is what I feel like talking about or singing about, that's what success is. You don't have to be financially rich at the end of the day, but just the fact that you enjoy the process, it means that you do your own thing and other people admire you for that, no matter what that one thing is. You know, you're just admired because you have the guts to go out and express yourself. So that's all. You don't have to be you can't come in at the top rung of the ladder, you know, you have to go up the ladder. But you have to believe in what you're doing and not be swayed too much.